I did not bring information on any of the other cases with me, and I am not in a position to say today to provide information on additional cases today. I'm sorry.
Matthew?
Sure, thanks a lot. Matthew Lee, Intercity Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks for the briefing, and also I'm sorry that you were upset. It definitely is upsetting, and maybe it should have been somebody else speaking. But I'm going to ask you
It was
first.
allergies.
No. Well, no. It really is. It's appreciated. But the question is, are there other allegations out there? And I want to ask you because in the Washington Post of January 11th, in an article you're quoted in, they talk about other allegations involving peacekeepers from Gabon and Burundi. And I wanted to ask you directly whether there are allegations out there about Republic of Congo, Congo-Brazzaville troops. And I also wanted to, you seem to blame it, not blame, well, I'll just put it on TCCs, but the Deschamps report had a whole section about the Undersecretary General of Peacekeeping and his failure to vet those who were rehatted into the UN as being, which seems pretty clearly to be related to the number of rapes. You're saying MINUSCA's had more rapes than other missions. So I guess what do you say about that section? Why isn't that individual answering the questions raised by the Deschamps report? And on the overall decrease in numbers, could this be a product of retaliation or fear of whistleblowers to come forward? Because as you know, Mr. Compass has said that the Undersecretary General of Peacekeeping tried to get him fired for coming forward, and has said in an interview that other people in the field have almost committed suicide because they feel unable to report these kind of crimes. So how do you respond to that? Thanks.
There are definitely other allegations out there, and we are working with other partners inside the UN and outside the UN on different allegations and different sets of allegations. Human Rights Watch is a very important, credible organization that is doing a lot of good, including in CAR. And if they are, or any organization, international or national, are able to come to us with credible allegations, and of course we will follow up, and we're grateful to them when they do it. And indeed, it's with that thinking in mind that we are trying to establish much stronger ties with community-based organizations who we think will bring allegations to us. If some poor girl has been raped, she may not feel very comfortable going up to a big UN base with barbed wire and soldiers with guns and flak jackets on, but through our work with community-based organizations, hopefully that girl, her mother, father will feel comfortable approaching that organization, who can then come to us. If it's Human Rights Watch, if it's any other NGO or UN agency, that we'll take the information from wherever it comes, and then we'll start the process of investigating to determine, are they credible? And if they are, then the whole process continues. And that is happening with some other cases now that have been brought to our attention. On the second issue, if I seem to suggest that somehow it was just a member state responsibility, then I was not clear, and I'm sorry for that. It is absolutely a shared responsibility. The United Nations has a very, very important responsibility. These are United Nations missions, United Nations personnel, and no one has a greater interest in addressing this problem than the United Nations. The Secretary General has been incredibly strong and persistent and proactive on this, and the rest of us are trying to follow that lead and doing everything we possibly can. But we can't do it on our own. So that's the point I was trying to make. We will only be successful if we have a functioning partnership between the troop contributors and the United Nations. So on that criminal accountability, the criminal investigation, the prosecution, and the judgment, all three of those depend on the member states, the troop contributor. So we can help with that, but we have to do it together. In terms of the last one, I was very surprised when I heard or read suggestions or claims that UN people were afraid to report on cases of sexual exploitation and abuse. Why on earth would they be afraid to report it? They should run to their supervisor, the head of the mission, a human rights person, UNICEF. I mean, if anyone with any integrity at all, if they come across information like this, will immediately report it to someone in the United Nations, some official. And I can't stress enough their obligation as UN staff to do it, and their moral obligation as a human being to do it. And I've never heard literally in the 6+ years I've been in this job, or this stuff is under my responsibility, never once heard the suggestion that someone would be afraid to report on claims of SEA for fear of retaliation. I visit a lot of missions. I spend a lot of time out there. So honestly, I don't buy it.
Well, look at, one follow-up. Look at what happened with Mr. Compass. I'm just going to say he didn't he's not the one saying he threatened to commit suicide, but he was put through the ringer and essentially fired, had to go through the system. What I wanted to just add is I just wanted to be very clear on one thing. The Washington Post article of January 11th, which quotes you, it says in interviews, UN officials said that peacekeepers were from Gabon, Morocco, Burundi, and France. So my question is, if this was the 11th, and this is now the 29th, so this is several weeks, what is the protocol for the UN going public? Are these ones still in the hopper, about to be announced in some future press conference? And how long does it take between the UN knowing enough to tell the Washington Post these allegations are real and being announced either from Geneva or here?
On the matter of retaliation or whatever, I spoke to the High Commissioner for Human Rights on that case relatively early on, before any of the brouhaha, and he conveyed to me, before there was any reporting of it anywhere, how concerned he was for the victims, and he was genuinely concerned for the welfare of the victims and that their names were out in the public. So it wasn't about reporting SEA. The concern, I'm 100% convinced that High Commissioner's legitimate concern was the welfare of victims, and I think that's admirable. On the matter of when are we going to report, et cetera, we're in the transition phase. We are going from a process that we followed for many years to a new approach, implementing the Secretary General's commitment on transparency. The original intention was to really roll that out through the issuance of his report at the end of February. However, in consultation with the High Commissioner's office, because as part of a joint team, we jointly became aware of these new allegations. We wanted to have kind of equivalents of information out there, and this is just advancing in a very little time, the implementation of this new approach to reporting. So you will, I think, see a very standard approach as of the issuance of the SG's report in February.